friends. Welcome to episode 49 of School Librarians United. I am your host, Amy Herman. This podcast is dedicated to the issues and challenges school librarians face every day. As a school librarian starting my 13th year, I found myself asking the question, where is the podcast that will help me do my job? I wanted a podcast which addressed the nuts and bolts of running a successful library program. I don't claim to have the answers, but I hope that this is a platform to share resources and exchange ideas. Now is a perfect time to mention that all the ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast by myself and my interview guests are our own and do not reflect those of our school district. When incorporating research, I always make sure to cite my sources. So whether you are a novice or a veteran school librarian, this podcast has something for you. A quick explanation for why episode 49 is being posted only 5 days after episode number 48. This upcoming weekend, I will be super aunt to my 2 nephews, and I'll be staying at their house for 3 days while my sister is out of town. While my own sons, who are 17, are happy to stay out of my way when I am recording, I am not expecting my 2.5 and 4.5-year-old nephews to be nearly as accommodating. To get a better understanding of just how organic some of these episodes can be, you have to know a little something about today's guest. Amanda Jones is our first returning guest to the podcast for a second episode. She is the mastermind behind episode number 41, Using Social Media to Showcase Your Library Program, which was posted on September 14th. If you haven't listened yet, I strongly recommend you do. This episode is based on a presentation Amanda Jones gave at ISTE 19 in Philadelphia, which is where we met. She was very generous in providing a link in the show notes so that everyone can benefit from her expertise and get to view her presentation. And this is the origin story for today's episode, Free Money and How to Stretch Your Budget. During the interview, Amanda began sharing with me how the use of social media helped her get funding for her library. Once it became apparent just how successful Amanda had been at securing grants and other funding for her library program, we quickly realized we had the making of yet another episode entirely. And I'm pretty sure I made her promise to return while we were still recording. I want you to sit back and relax while you listen to Amanda's sage words of experience. Don't feel you need to take notes. Amanda has created a resource page, more like 3 pages, which outline each grant and include all the links, and I will be sure to include this in our show notes. Everybody, I am so excited to be talking to Amanda Jones tonight. And if you are just joining us for the first time, Amanda, would you introduce yourself and describe your library assignment to our listeners?
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Amanda Jones. I am a 19-year educator. This is my 5th year as a school librarian. The other 14 years, I was an English language arts teacher. I work at the same middle school that I went to school at as a kid. We have around 740 students. I run a fixed flex schedule where I see ELA classes 1 week for checkouts and lessons, and then the other teachers can book the following week for math, science, social studies, Skypes, breakouts, research. I'm booked pretty solid. I rarely have a day without classes. I also open our school library every morning before school and as often as possible at recess. I have no para. I'm by myself, but I do have some high school interns that come in to help me shelve and process books. And my school is somewhat rural, suburban community outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And we range in students from very low socioeconomic backgrounds to middle class.
Well, I'm going to back you up right now because I talked to you on Friday and you had some really fun things going on in the library. Would you tell us what was happening in your library on Friday this past week?
Oh, are you talking about the bat scientist?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yes. We there's a free resource out there called Skype a Scientist, and you can sign up and they will pair you with a scientist and you just request what you're looking for. And they paired me up with Allison Brokaw, who is a bat scientist, and she is in Panama right now, currently researching bats. We Skyped her last year also. And she was so good that I kind of skipped the Skype a scientist step and just emailed her directly this time. But I do use Skype a scientist all the time, but she's fabulous. So we Skyped her. It was around 250 fifth graders we ended up having throughout the day. We had 7 sessions, and she would Skype for around 30 to 40 minutes. She showed them live bats, videos, pictures. They got to ask questions. It was so amazing. And then I read them the story, Bats at the Library by Brian Wise.
I purchased several of those books. I think that's a really great example of how you try one thing and you never know how it's just going to take off. And until you sort of put yourself out there, you Skype somebody, and then it turns into this amazing day-long, unforgettable activity. And your students are the winners. I mean, you create the place for this to happen, and you're sort of the logistics, but it's really impressive.
I've had several parents contact me through email because I post on social media what we were doing, and I had several parents email me how their kids came home. And we have a lot of bats in Louisiana, so they were sitting out at dusk, and they were, look at that bat, that's a such and such bat, and we learned about this, and and Miss Brokaw in Panama said blah blah blah. It was. So they actually went home and talked about it. So I was really excited about that.
Well, I think that's wonderful. I mean, likewise in Michigan, we have a lot of bats and families who have bat houses in the back of their yards to keep down the insect population. It's a really helpful because you also want to dispel this idea that there's something to fear. And I think that's important for our kids. But I also want to back you up even more. You mentioned that you have high school interns.
Yes.
Do tell.
Okay. So I used to have a paraprofessional help me in the library, and our school split into different grades. We were 6th through 8th, and we went to 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th, 2 different schools. And our numbers went down, so I lost my para. And I was kind of drowning in all of the work, the shelving, because we have a lot of, I think we had 8,500 circulation or books circulated last month. And so I'm constantly shelving, and I couldn't keep up with it. And I do teach the kids how to shelve a little bit, but they need some work.
Yeah,
so
it's imprecise.
Yeah. I happened to mention it to our high school librarian, and because we're a small community, so we all the kids feed up through the same schools. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned it to the high school librarian, and she talked to the principal at the high school, and now it's a class at the high school. So,
look what you did.
Yeah.
Look what you did.
I have 12 that come in, and it's funny because they're all my former students that I taught when I was in the classroom back in 7th and 8th grade. But they come in, there's 12 of them, and they come whatever time they would have that class at the high school. They drive over to our school, they sign in, and then I just have a list of things they do. They cover books with Capco covers. They're really amazing. And I would just drown if I didn't have them.
But I think that's amazing because I think a lot of people, I know somebody's just going to tell me no. I think when we, and this does tie into today's topic, I think when we anticipate the answer is going to be no, we don't even bother to ask. And I think that I can already tell that your message is going to be,
just ask.
Just ask that you have nothing to lose, and now you have 12 workers. And I got to tell you, students are some of the hardest working. And I'm sure a letter of recommendation from you would be lovely and very much appreciated for their applications or a job that they might be hoping to get. Folks, I want to tell you a little bit about Amanda. She is phenomenal and very generous. She was featured in episode 41. As AASL's social media superstar, and she shared her strategies for using social media to promote our library programs. And I learned while I was interviewing her that Amanda has quite a knack for tapping a very wide variety of funding sources, both for your programming and for your physical space. I wanted to know, Amanda, first of all, how early in your career did you start seeking out additional funds for your annual budget?
So this is my 5th year in the library, and about 8 years ago, I started writing down, because I knew I wanted to be a school librarian. And I knew our librarian would be retiring eventually. And so I started just looking all over the internet at blogs. I didn't realize there was groups out there at the time. So I was looking at blogs and I had this huge notebook full of ideas. And I'm like, there's no way I can do all of this. This is going to take so much money. And around the same time, one of our students started a nonprofit called Zach's Lids for Kids. And he provides hats for kids that are going through chemotherapy. And I happened to talk to his mom, and she said, there's free money out there with grants. And I didn't know anything. I was like, what is a grant? And she started filling me in, and she would send me links. And then those links led to more links. And now she actually works at our district office as the grant coordinator. But she started me out with my very first Walmart grant. But I started just writing down ideas and thinking, I have to have money to do all this. And so when I first became librarian, I created a 5-year plan of what I wanted to accomplish. And it included everything from collection, the aesthetics of the library, because our library was very drab, programming ideas. And we're very fortunate that we do get money for books, about $7 per student for books and supplies. But they don't pay for makerspace and STEM materials and special programming, author visits, and things that I wanted to do. So I had to start researching ways to put my plans into action.
Sure. So when it comes to deciding, obviously you had some ideas of the things that you wanted, and then you went to go find some money to support those needs. I want to jump right in because you have provided the listeners with a wonderful resource. I will be including this link in the show notes, but it is multiple pages, and I encourage listeners to go and visit this because Amanda has been kind enough to embed all the links that are current with the different grants that she's going to talk about. So I strongly encourage you, what Amanda has done in the handful of years that you've been in the library is absolutely phenomenal. It's the reason why I knew we needed to do this episode, because she has such a wealth of knowledge to share with everybody. So I do want to make sure you don't have to write any of these things down because Amanda has done it for us. And I will be putting this resource in our show notes, and all you have to do is save it, and you can then have it to reference when you find time to go through our show notes. So listeners, tune in and let Amanda walk us through all of these different sources of funding for our library programs, and you can visit the show notes after our episode's over. All right, Amanda, take it away. Tell us a little bit about the Walmart and the Sam's Club grant that you recommend.
Okay, so if you have a Walmart, and I should have looked it up, I think it's within 25 miles. I might be off by mileage, but you can apply to every Walmart within 25 miles. And if you're like me, there are about 25 Walmarts within 25 miles of where I live, because we live near Baton Rouge. And you can also apply to every Sam's Club. So the very first grants I ever wrote, and because I'm not what we call a very skilled author, and so I was very nervous, but everybody I talked to said, "Oh, grant writing is so easy." It really kind of is. So I tried with Walmart, and I asked for $3,000, and I got, I think, $2,000 my first Walmart grant. It was for STEM supplies, and I asked the local Sam's Club. I asked them for $5,000, but I got $2,500, which to me is, even though I didn't get the full amount, I mean, I ended up $4,000.
It's better than a poke in the eye. Sure.
Yeah.
It's better than a poke in the eye. That sounds like a victory right there.
Yes. And it's very easy money, because the very first time I wrote it, you had to write a paragraph. Now you just write the title of what you want to do.
Can I ask you, do they ask for any sort of follow-up?
Nope.
You don't have to provide them with photo evidence of what
Nope.
you did, or sort of a big thank you on Twitter? I mean, how do you
Nothing.
Wow.
They don't require. I actually got one this summer. I had written, because every February is when the grant cycle starts over.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just go on and just post them at all the Walmarts. And I just forgot about it. And my secretary emailed me and said, "Hey, there's a $1,500 check here for you from Walmart." I didn't even know I had gotten one. They just send the check. Sometimes they don't even email you and tell you that you got it. They just send the check. Now, but what I do so we have a print shop in our district. So for about $14, I can get a giant check blown up. And so I'll go to Walmart, I'll call them first, and I'll ask the manager to take a picture with me, and I'll post it on social media, but I also email our local newspaper and ask them to post it as well.
Well, and the point that you made in your last episode is that social media is a great way to not only promote your program, but generate more attention for the types of things that you're doing. And in doing that, I'm sure that the optics look fantastic for corporate. So when, they will, I'm sure, appreciate that you've done that.
It's a snowball effect. The more grants you write, the more you promote on social media, the more you promote on social media, the more corporate headquarters notice. Because I'll tag everybody on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I tag them and I do say thank you. And I'll take pictures with the kids with what we purchased. I'll take pictures with a giant check with the managers. And I've gotten the Walmart grant every year since then. And I know a lot of teachers in my area our librarians will complain. They'll say, well, we don't get them. And I said, I don't know. I just make a big deal out of it. I go in and take a big picture and I post, because at this point, Walmart just asks you for a title. I don't even think you can post more than 8 words. So you just write 8 words and they'll send you money.
Well, and again, you're making them look good. And I think that especially, these are the kinds of things that corporates, offices want to make sure that the general public recognizes the things that they're doing to support the community. And this is going directly to support the communities where these stores are. So, they have a vested interest in this as well. So I love that you mentioned that. Tell me a little bit about Exxon, because as somebody in Michigan, I got to tell you, I don't know what a presence Exxon is, but perhaps this is a thing in the South.
We have an Exxon Mobil oil refinery near us. And so I put that in the notes because I'm sure everywhere in the United States, there's some sort of like refinery or like Dow Chemical. We have a Dow Chemical company, Waste Management. There are corporations that in your area that will provide grants. A lot of them. I didn't realize how many. There's tons of corporations, huge corporations that'll have a local office that will provide grants. And one of the ones we have, our Exxon Mobil, employs a lot of the citizens in our community. And so they have a volunteer program where if anyone of the Exxon workers or their spouses or their children ages 20 to 25 will volunteer 20 hours at the school, they'll send $500.
Oh, wow.
Yes, for every, and we probably have about 50 parents at our school that work for Exxon. Now they do cap it at $5,000 per school per year.
Okay. Well, let's not be greedy.
Right. And they cap it at $2,000 per family. So you can only give as a family. But what they do, the way I get around that is they also do what's called a team volunteer grant. So if you can get about 10 of them, the workers, the family, the spouses, the children, and you do a project at your school. Like one year we painted the whole school, and for every 4 workers you have, if they work 20 combined hours, you get $500 per work. It ended up, I got about $2,000, and they painted the school.
Oh,
so it was win-win.
I was going to say, it sounds like persistence pays off. That if at first you it sounds like you've become rather clever at looking at this. And I think that the message there is if you don't have an Exxon, we do have large corporate headquarters situated all over the United States, and look in your neighborhoods and surrounding metro areas for large corporations do you look for educator-related grants, or these are just neighborhood-based grants?
Well, I look for everything. Okay. But if it's a corporation, for instance, one of our electrical companies is Entergy. Mm-hmm. And so I Googled Entergy education or Entergy grant, and links will pop up. Wow. And you just read. And I've done that with every big corporation. I mean, pretty much anything out here. Chick-fil-A, Grant, mm-hmm. You can find something for every company. I just don't have time to write to every company.
Of course.
And even if they can't do, like with the Exxon, with the volunteer grant, like our Ross Dress for Less stores. I
Yeah,
don't know if you have Ross stores
we
in
do. You
Michigan.
do.
And if it's a certain radius from your school, they'll donate $250. I just filled out a form online. I think it took me 5 minutes, and they sent me a check for $250. Never had to show how I spent it. And I just promoted on social media and said, "Thank you, Ross Dress for Less, for giving me $250."
That's fantastic. Let's you now highlight national grants, and these I'm just so excited. Let's get started with Pets in the Classroom.
Okay, so I've done Pets in the Classroom every year for about 6 years now. So the very first time you do a Pets in the Classroom grant, you can it depends on what type of pet you want, but you can get a starter kit where they'll send you a kit for the habitat, the animal, and you just take it to your local PetSmart or Petco or whatever pet store you have. And you say, "Here's my coupon for my betta fish or my gecko or whatever." And they'll give you everything. And you just walk out with everything you need to start a classroom, have a classroom pet.
Oh,
And
that's
did you,
wonderful.
did you know about that? Did you know about that?
Absolutely not. Nope. And
Oh,
I'll tell you
good.
what, part of it is for those of us who are not staffing our libraries every day, I have a little bit of trepidation with leaving live animals in a library when I'm only there every other day.
Oh, I'll
But
tell you what you need to get. You need to get Madagascar hissing cockroaches.
nobody will come near them. Yes, they'll
Oh,
be
my
left
kids, they let them
alone.
crawl all up their
Oh my
arms.
gosh. Okay. All right. Not supposed to gasp while recording, but are you let the kids put their hands in and take the cockroaches out?
Yes.
Why? Why?
Well, I have little
Why?
gloves. I have little gloves, but then they just let them crawl up their arms. And they beg, "Please." And every day at lunch, they'll bring me their leftover like tomato slices and carrots. "Can we feed Voldemort? Can we feed Harry Potter and Ron and Hermione?" Because I have four.
Oh my
And
God.
but they're very hardy. Like you can leave some cricket food. I get the little that you would feed crickets,
Yeah.
and they can go several days, so I don't have to worry about the weekends. And
Okay. Still trying to get past the cockroaches in your library. The fact that they are provided because you wrote a grant. Yes, pets in the library is, I think, going to have to be another episode because I've seen a lot of interest in having pets in the library. I will say I learned a fun fact: don't make it rabbits because they can literally have heart attacks in front of the children and keel over dead.
well, that's horrible.
Yeah, we had a grade level teacher bring a rabbit that lasted about half an hour before it died right in front of the children. So I'm going to just say public notice, service notice, please don't bring rabbits into the classroom.
And
They are very
allergies
fragile.
too.
Allergies
You have
as
to worry
well.
about allergies. I started out with guinea pigs, and they were very hard to upkeep.
Yeah.
So I actually gave them to a classroom teacher,
Oh.
and so I started over and got I have a betta fish and my roaches, my four male roaches who are supposed to be males, but now there are little babies in there, so obviously one of them is not a male. But now the kids are saying, "Can we do an adopt a pet program?" And take the babies, and we can do an adopted pet, and we can. And it's become a whole thing.
I'm just going to really try hard to edit my laughing out of my side of this conversation. All right, so pets in the classroom, good to know. Do tell us about the Scholastic contest, please.
There are Scholastic posts so many contests every month, whether it's a writing an essay, the kids write an essay, or teachers write an essay, or even sweepstakes. They do sweepstakes all the time. One of the biggest ones they do every year is the James Patterson grant. And I've never actually received one myself, but a fellow teacher has at my school, and a teacher at the school next door to me has received 200, I think it's 250 or maybe $500 from Scholastic. And then they get so many points to get for books for their classroom. And he gives out, I think, 2.5 million every year. But Scholastic does tons. And they also Scholastic has a grants for librarians list online that I provided a link to with tons of different grants just for librarians.
Can I ask, my assumption is that would be to use with their resource catalog, that you would use your Scholastic Book Fair. It's sort of like spending book fair money. You would be using it in the instructional resource catalog.
I think what our teacher did was she went through the tab book club form.
Okay.
And when she went and bought, and then I think she bought a lot for the students and then for her own classroom library.
Okay, cool. All right, we heard a little bit in when we had our first conversation about your bees. Do tell us, for anyone who's not heard you in your first episode, about the Bee Cause, as in BEE Cause Foundation.
So the Bee Cause Foundation has partnered with it's not Whole Foods, Whole Kids Foundation, and they give away every year. They'll give away observational beehives, and you can get indoor observational beehives. You can write grants for outside beehives. They will give you the actual So I have an indoor observation hive. It's a rectangular box, kind of like a shadow box, and it's on hinges so the kids can see the bees, and they fly in and out through a tube to the outside. And so you can get an observational beehive, or you can actually give the hives outside, and you can tie them into all sorts of STEM lessons. Our state insect is the honeybee, which is why I was interested in this in the first place. But you can also, the same foundation will provide grants for gardens too. So right now I'm working on a grant to have a bee garden outside where the bees come in and out in a courtyard out of our library.
I have a question just because, get it? I have a question just because, does it come pre-populated with a colony, or do they send some live bees to populate? How does that happen?
What they do is they send the box and the installation guide on how to install it. And then our custodian installed it for me, but then they send a check for $300. And so you can use that to purchase bees or anything related to what you're going to need. I posted on social media that I needed a hive, and someone donated it. And then that hive swarmed and left. So this past summer I said, hey guys, we need a new hive because our old hive swarmed and left. And someone they didn't even have a kiddo at my school. Someone tagged someone who tagged someone, and she emailed me and said, hey, she bought a hive for me. She didn't even have her own hive. She said, I'll pay to buy you a hive. She found the hive. I just had to go pick them up.
And do you just place it in close proximity to the entrance to your hive? I mean, and they just sort of gravitate, or do you funnel them in?
You take, so a bee box, like when you pick them up, they're in a box, and the frames of the hive are down in the box. So you slide the frame out of the box and you slide it into the observational hive.
All right, I get it.
And so it slides. I had to YouTube it. And the very first time we did it, we had a what do you call apiary, apiist? I don't know.
Yes.
Bee expert.
A bee expert.
Yes, he came and installed the bees for us. And so the second time, my friend and I just put on a bee suit.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it. Tell me about Target field trip grants.
So this is one that I've never personally received, but I know people who have. So every year Target puts out a call. You can get up to $700 to help fund a field trip. So this is especially helpful if, you have kids that can't afford a field trip. You can use that money to help either pay for the kids who can't attend, or just pay for the buses, or pay for some large chunk of the field trip. We also do, I have 2 girls who code clubs, and they'll send you also, if you have a girls who code and you, not book with them, you register your club with them, they'll send you $300 each. So I didn't pay for my girls who code field trip because they sent me money also, which was originally, I had written a Target field trip grant. I didn't get it, but that's something I wanted to also say to everybody. You're not going to get every grant you write. It's okay. But there is Target money out there for field trips.
Well, and again, persistence pays off. And sometimes, I think what we forget is, this magic wand, it doesn't happen right away. There is that delayed sense of gratification that you actually, in much the same way you apply to present at a conference, you're not going to find out for months. And so when you apply for these grants, oftentimes it's sort of, out of sight, out of mind. You move on to the next thing, and all of a sudden you're pleasantly surprised.
Yes. And it's a very happy feeling when you open that email, or your secretary calls you and says, we have a check for you, and you didn't know it was coming.
I imagine your administration is incredibly impressed with your ability to bring funding into your district and do so. makes your district look just that all the more impressive to your taxpayers. Your families have got to be pleased.
They're very supportive. And my principal said, I'll go in to ask, hey, can I write such and such grant? And by this time he's told me, just don't even ask me, just write it.
Because
But
they have to sign them. They have to sign off on
he's
these.
like, just go for it. You know where my signature stamp is.
Well, and you mentioned families, or I did, but there is such a thing as fatigue, donor fatigue. I think that there is such a thing as at some point the families get tapped so often, whether it's for church organizations or sports organizations or extracurriculars, that, asking families yet again, I think this is smart, because asking the parents every time you need something can lead to a certain amount of donor fatigue.
It can, which is why, because I'm very successful with Donors Choose, but I don't try to do it as often because of the fatigue. And I also like that they see that I'm not just asking them. I'm looking for as many sources of funding as possible. And so they're, I think, more willing. They're like, okay, well, she wrote a grant and got X amount of dollars for these kids to have this special seating. Now I can help with this Donors Choose to get the special tables that go with it.
Okay, wow. Next on your list, Lowe's Toolbox for Education. It sounds like that's something you've been trying, and it hasn't come through yet.
Well, I did get it. The first year I applied, I got it. It was $4,500 for technology. But since then, I just noticed within the past few months, because I went to apply again, you have to wait so many years before you apply again. Now it says it's currently by invitation only. So I don't know how you get that invitation, but I want one.
And I want to mention, I think it's very easy for us to assume that the organizations that we're applying to are going to provide product, because you wrote Lowe's Toolbox. And I thought, so you would have to buy everything at Lowe's. And it sounds like that's not the case at all. So Target isn't giving you money to spend at Target. They're giving you money to spend on field trips. So I think that that's the misconception.
That when I started researching Lowe's is because I want a new carpet in the library. And once I found out that they would help fund the computers I needed, I quickly switched over because I had my triage list of things I needed first. I'm like, carpet can wait. We need computers. So, and they're another one. They didn't ask for any.
Well, and again, who would have thought, let's go to Lowe's for funding for our technology. And I think that is where you really do have to become creative and think outside the box and take a chance.
Now, I want to say we also have a Home Depot in our community. Now, Home Depot you do get it in product.
Okay.
So anytime, like if you're going to do maker spaces and you need bins, they give it in Home Depot, not gift cards.
Sure.
So if you needed to paint, or if you needed new carpet, or you needed bins, or you wanted to build an outdoor classroom, Home Depot is something that would do it in product. Mm-hmm. So I did have a friend who wrote a Home Depot one for an outdoor classroom and got it funded last year.
Oh, that's so fantastic. Tell me about Dollar General literacy grants.
Okay, Dollar General is like, I'm going to get it one day. I have never received one of those.
We do have Dollar Generals, and I am aware of people who have not received them, but do you know anybody who's received one of these Dollar Generals?
Oh, we have. They're like my Achilles heel. I will get one day. They have several. So we had in 2016 community natural disaster. We had a flooding event that ended up destroying, I want to say 90% of the homes in our area. I'm talking 6 feet of water in all of the homes. It damaged 20 schools. I think we lost 6 total schools, completely wiped out. Several of the librarians in my community, they have a disaster fund. So they each got $20,000 Dollar General. A friend of mine, her library flooded. She just found out she got it at the end of last year. And that was free money. Like she ordered Follett books. But they also do smaller ones. They'll do $4,000 or $5,000 is a lot of money. They'll do $4,000 or $5,000 for summer reading programs, family involvement, getting, I should have written down the exact name, but it's parents reading to children. There's a grant for that, getting the parents in. and a basic just youth literacy grant. And I have several friends that have gotten some of those $4,000, $5,000 just for books.
Wow, that's so encouraging to hear. Tell me about Fund for Teachers.
So I haven't done this one yet, but it is my goal for next summer to write. But because the Fund for Teachers grant is a little more extensive, the other grants I've been talking about are take 5, 10, maybe 30 minutes max. Funds for Teachers, you actually have to, you have to have, it's a very detailed, but Fund for Teachers will pay you to go and travel somewhere for professional development. And not just you can get a team together. So my goal is I want to get several librarians and go to ALA one summer when it's farther away, or maybe AASL in 2 years when it happens again. I haven't decided about that yet, but they will pay you. I know people that have gone to China and Russia, and they will pay you to go get professionally developed.
Mm-hmm. Here's the problem. We're going to tell everybody about these, and there's going to be such a rush on all of these grants. We're going to be like, oh, they've maxed out on their applications. I wonder why, because Amanda talked about it on the episode. But here's the thing. Again, all you can do is try, and the worst thing that happens is you don't get it. But, what a wonderful thing if you can, because I know if I go to conferences, especially in the summer, that is something I will have to provide my own. When I flew to Philadelphia and I went to ISTE, I sort of treated that as a birthday present and paid for the whole thing. And, it was an investment in myself. It was an investment in this podcast, but I paid for it. I want to go on. Now, you said awards. I love my librarian award. I have seen this one on Twitter. So tell us about this.
It's been all over Twitter. Now there's 10. I think they award 10 librarians, and it's $5,000 cash award. They pay you to travel to receive your award. But a lot of people will feel like, oh, it's an award, and I don't know, and should I nominate myself? Is that bragging? Go for it. That's $5,000.
I think that is sort of awkward to or ask a peer. Say, I'm trying to get this award. I think Lemony Snicket had an award at some point, and it came with a cash award, and you sort of like, but I have to nominate myself. That's awkward.
I will say I have a friend, so a close friend of mine. We've taught together for 15, 16 years, and I'll text her, hey, did you know you nominated for the I Love My Librarian Award?
Well, take turns, right?
Yeah. So, if you're embarrassed, ask your friend to help nominate you. But really, we need, as librarians, be proud of what we do, and don't be scared to nominate yourself or apply for an award. I did that last summer with the ASL's Inspire Special Event Grant. I thought there's no way. ASL is huge, and I got it. It was $2,000, and I just went for it. So just go for these awards, especially there's one coming up, the School Library Journal Librarian of the Year. I know I'm not going to get it. I look at all the librarians on Twitter, but I'm going to go for it. You never know, because I'll write my application, and I'll have it stored in a document, and next year I'll add to it and add to it and add to it, and maybe one year I'll get it. But it's $2,500 cash, $2,500 in books, and a visit from Mr. Shu. Mm-hmm. What more could you ask for? I love Mr. Shu.
Well, and I think that one thing that we have had to say again and again, especially in our advocacy episodes, is that we cannot just be timid. And I think school librarians, it doesn't matter where in the country you work. I don't think any of us can sit back and become complacent about the jobs we do. I think we all have to recognize that when budgets get tight, administrators have to be clever with who they're going to fund. And there's, unfortunately, school librarians tend to be negotiable, that you can't compromise on grade level teachers, and nobody's going to eliminate fourth grade or algebra 2. But unfortunately, school librarians sometimes have been replaced with, paras making $9.50 an hour.
And I'm very fortunate in my district that all 43 schools have a certified school librarian, but I want to keep it that way. So I just wrote an ASL grant, one of their advocacy grants, to run an advocacy program in my parish. And somebody asked me why they have school librarians. I want to keep my job, because you never know.
Sure. Tell me about professional association grants, because I'll be honest, didn't know about these.
So a lot of us are have all these professional associations. So the one in Louisiana, we don't have union. Well, we kind of sort of have unions in Louisiana, but they're called professional associations. So ours is called Apple, and I was on my Apple site one day just for I don't know why, and it said they had a grant link. I was like, "What? They have a grant link?" I clicked on it. I think I filled out 10 minutes, and they paid $500 for me to go. They paid my entire ISTE registration for
Wow.
ISTE in
Yeah.
Philadelphia last summer. So then I go to my principal and I say, "Hey, I've gotten somebody to pay the 500 registration. Are you going to pay for me to go?" And so you work it out like that when you want to do things. Well, I got a grant to cover part of it, or I got a grant to cover this. I have partial grants to help cover ASL coming up in November. And I said, "Hey, I just need you to cover my food and whatever." And they're more willing when you can get a grant to pay for portions of your professional development. But we also have like a Louisiana Reading Association, which is our affiliate of the International Literacy
Sure.
Association.
And each state would have one.
And so each state has one,
Yeah.
and ours has grants, travel grants, or grants for supplies and materials. Grants everywhere.
Well, and you mentioned state associations. I know that the Department of Education in each state would also have some grants which educators in general could apply to that would pay for things such as travel expenses and registration fees. So I think it's worth noting that look at your respective Department of Education and the grants on that website to see what you can get.
And if you're a member of the American Library Association,
which we all should be.
Yes, we all should be.
Yeah,
and I'm
listeners in the United States.
Yes, I'm also a member of the American Association of School Librarians, which we all should be.
Yes,
they have whole pages of awards and grants, and I go through it. I'm like, what am I going to write this year? What am I going to write this year? And I got one last year. So now I'm like, well, maybe I'll try for two this year, because I went to the award ceremony and there was a girl that got two. So you get two, you never know.
Yeah.
I'll apply for 5 and maybe I'll get one.
Tell me about Ed Camp. Because I've just this year started going and presenting at local Ed Camps, ones that I drive to. But tell me about the Ed Camp Foundation.
So the Ed Camp Foundation is, I think it was created by Bill and Melinda Gates, I believe. And we had one in Baton Rouge that my good friend Tiffany Whitehead, who is the most fabulous librarian. If you ever want to see an excellent librarian blog, Mighty Little Librarian, and I'm fortunate that she lives 15 miles from me. I call her my librarian mom, even though I'm way older than her, because she gives me advice. But she has an Ed Camp with several of her friends, and I went to one. I thought, I could start one of these. So I started Ed Camp Watson in my town, and I think we had 150 educators come to it this past summer. And you can write corporations, by the way, speaking of free stuff, that'll send you all sorts of swag to give out at your Ed Camp. But occasionally they also will provide what's called an Ed Camp Impact Grant. And it kind of depends on the year and if they have funds for it. But they'll pay you $200 to go towards professional development. So, you have to go to an Ed Camp, I think, within a certain time frame, like maybe 2 or 3 months. But they'll say, what did you learn at this Ed Camp that you want to expand upon? And where do you want to go expand upon it at? And they'll give you $200, but also they'll give you, I think they might give you up to $500. They'll give you $200 to run your Ed Camp, though, to get you started. So when I started my Ed Camp, I'm like, this is going to cost money. They'll send you an Ed Camp in a box, and it's got the name tags, the pins, the
stickers,
stickers,
yeah,
and a nice check for $200 to help you get started, which paid for our coffee and breakfast and for our attendees.
Well, sure. And I will say, as somebody who has gone to several Ed Camps, especially because the ones during the school year are held on the weekends, depending on your state, you can submit those for continuing education credits. And I know I have. And if you do enough continuing education credits, you get a pay advancement. So there is a certain amount of paperwork that you have to file with your district and, stay on top of that. But the Ed Camps is a great way to make sure you maintain your certification. And
I run mine in the summer. We do mine right before school starts. It's kind of like a pump up, get excited about school.
Sure.
But you could run it if you wanted to run one, because you don't just say there's not an Ed Camp around you and you want to attend to get those credits, but there's not one, start one.
Right.
And you could start one and get your own credits.
That's a great idea. Tell me about Real ISD projects, because I have not heard about this either.
Yes. Okay. So it's called, it's Realized is how you say it.
It's not Real ISD?
But I called it Real ISD the whole week I was there for my training until somebody informed me I was saying it incorrectly. Okay. It's Realized. And they have two different locations. So there's one in the south, which covers Georgia, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana. And then there's one up north, which is Pennsylvania, New York, Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana. And I didn't realize, because you're Michigan, so I didn't realize, I was like, oh, Amy might like this because it's Michigan. Because I just focused on the south.
Of course.
But they have two, what they do is they'll pay the one I went to is in University of West Georgia. And Dr. Melissa Johnston runs it, and her friend, and I can't remember Dr. Dan's last name, but he's at the University of Buffalo in New York. And so they run a 4-day training for school librarians in rural locations that they'll pay. They flew me to Georgia. They put me in a hotel, they fed me, and they trained me for 4 days with 20 other librarians, school librarians. It was the most exciting, just getting to talk with 20 librarians for 24 hours a day for 4 days. Cause we all went in each other's rooms and we were like talking shop. We're so nerdy, but they train you on STEM, and they showed us so many things. And they have 1 more year of funding. So they actually will take 20 applicants from the South and 20 applicants from the northern states this upcoming summer. And I think applications start around January, February, maybe March. And I put the link for the website on there. So if you live in those states, definitely apply. I went the very first year. My friend Erica went this past summer. She said it's life-changing. I said it's life-changing. I actually met another librarian from Baton Rouge here, and we've been presenting together at our Louisiana Library Association, at our LAQ, which is our ISTE affiliate. We've been presenting together, and she and I are actually going to present at ASL together, and we met through Realize.
Oh, look at you building relationships.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but my professor, Dr. Melissa Johnston, is actually helping me attend ASL with a grant, because she is going to be speaking about Realize at ASL, and I'm going to be presenting with her. So
it's a
really
win-win.
life-changing.
It's a win-win. Now, I can say I have applied for this next grant and did not get it, but I will not stop trying. But I know a little something about the Library of Congress because they have a seminar or a workshop for school librarians specifically. The application process is entirely online. You do need a letter of recommendation, I think, from your principal. And I did find out that I did not get the grant, but it wouldn't stop me from trying again. And especially if you have some availability in the summer, I think it's in late June. Late June, they have a 3-day with the school librarians from all over the country.
My friend Rebecca attended and said it's fabulous. My goal is to apply for that this year. That, and there's some Smithsonian Institute workshops that they say classroom teachers, but they'll accept librarians also.
And that's good to know.
And there's one in Oxford that is for middle school librarians, where you can go in and tour the libraries at Oxford. Oh, I want to go to that so bad. So I'm thinking about applying that. There's another one I mentioned that'll pay if you do a lot of makerspace and you want to be a Lego Master Educator, you can apply to be a Lego Master Educator. They'll pay to send you to Chicago, New York, wherever they're having the training. You just have to look for those dates.
Sure.
See when they're open.
And presumably, I mean, I know that the conferences are paid for. My understanding is, especially with the Library of Congress, you would be responsible for your travel and for your your airfare and your hotel stay. But again, if you can source out some of those expenses to other grants or get some support through your district, that would be a good idea.
And I have some ideas. I'll tell you how I helped fund ISTE. I did a summer technology camp for students, summer camp, private summer camp with technology that helped funded my airfare and hotel for ISTE this past summer.
And it's very smart. Tell me, a lot of us, when we think about supplying our classrooms and our libraries, we think of Donors Choose first. And notice we've gone 45 minutes and now we're getting to Donors Choose. Tell me a little bit about Donors Choose, because you've had a great deal of success with Donors Choose.
So Donors Choose, you can write a project, and you can pretty much you can do it for professional development, you can do it to fund basics in your classroom, you can for STEM, whatever, books. I've had I think 6 or 7 projects within the past 2 years funded. We just had a weather station. I wanted a weather station in the library for science activities funded. The new titles, because we have to wait. We spend all our budget in October, and I have to wait till October of next year for our district money for books. Well, Guts was coming out and Dogman was coming out, and I needed some money for that. So I did a Donors Choose for new titles, funded instantly within an hour or two because I posted on social media.
I was going to say a lot of that comes with the fact you've invested in establishing your social media base, because you aren't saying, oh, I need to raise money. And what you're doing during the year is building that base, that social media base, so that when you do ask for money, a very large audience is hearing about it.
And then after I ask for it, once I receive what I asked for, I take pictures and thank you so much for help. This is where your money went. And it's funny because donors, they do a lot of matching programs. So, and you should always have, even if you don't think you're going to get something funded in the next few months, you should always have something on Donors Choose, because every now and then some billionaire will come in and just pay for everybody's Donors Choose. I've had several friends that are like, I forgot I had that, and somebody came in and just paid for it, and I got funded today, and everybody's cheering, and I was not, because I was like, oh, I forgot to post another one after my last one. But they have matching offers. So if I post on social media, I'll say, hey, I want some new titles. I need $200 in books, but right now it's 2 for 1. So your $20 actually becomes 40, or your $5 becomes 10, your $3 becomes 6. And they're like, okay, well, it'll match it. They see that somebody's helping out with it. But it's funny because Sonic has, right? Do y'all have Sonics in Michigan? Sonic drive-ins?
We do have them, not as many as you do, but they are sporadic. They're sporadic in Michigan.
Well, they do. They've partnered with Donors Choose. So it's called Sonic's Limeades for Learning. And yeah, so and everybody here in the South, we drink cherry limeades like they're going out of style. So what they'll do is you link your Donors Choose to the Sonic Limeades for Learning site, and in theory, people vote on what project they want to be funded every week, and Sonic will fund it. So I did one for my weather station. I wanted a weather station, and I posted it on my Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and said, hey, parents, go vote for me because I want a weather machine. Well, they just funded it. The parents just went in and bought it for me. So
that's
I tried
wonderful.
to do it's like, I was so happy that I got it funded, but at the same time, like, you could have just voted for me. Come on. So now I'm like, well, what can I post that's like a larger
big ask?
Yes.
Yeah.
For votes.
Well,
they're
tell
not having to do
me,
anything but vote.
How does that differ from Adopt a Classroom?
So Adopt a Classroom is really cool because with Donors Choose, you have to wait for your whole project to be funded. And Adopt a Classroom, as you get the money, you can spend it. So I had asked for some flexible seating, and I had posted several different items that I wanted from Office Depot for flexible seating. And as the money would come in, I'm like, okay, I have enough money. Now I can order a second one. And then money would roll in. Now I can order a third one. So you don't have to wait for the full project to be funded. And then if you have money left over, like I had like an odd amount, like $11 left over after flexible seating. And so they'll let you just spend it on, I needed some markers. So I just, with Donors Choose, it's very specific what you need and what do you need funded. And with Adopt a Classroom, it's like your money's in a pool, a pot, and you can spend it as needed. Now,
tie it all together with hashtag clear the lists, because I saw that, in August, it was all over Twitter.
It was everywhere.
Yeah,
everybody was getting clear the list funded. And I didn't do it personally only because I was getting so much with my Donors Choose. I didn't want to be greedy. And my Amazon wish list, I had posted, and a lot of my parents had bought off my Amazon wish list. So I didn't want to be like that greedy person out there. But there were so many people you just post, clear the list on Twitter and post what you want and link it to your Amazon wish list. And people were going in like crazy and just purchasing everything these teachers were asking for. I think I am going to try it next year.
Sure.
It just depends. I don't want to be too greedy.
No, but you know what? Having the Amazon wish list, I know we're starting off one of my buildings creating for the very first time a makerspace. And rather than ask parents in a newsletter, just creating an Amazon wish list and giving anyone the option to go and make those purchases on our behalf, it really does make a great deal of sense. Tell me about corporate gifts, because again, this is something that we might not think about otherwise.
So, and I want to back up just one
Sure.
second and say, as far as the Amazon wish list, if you go and turn it into a QR code and print a whole bunch on paper and at open house and orientations and things, hand them to parents randomly throughout the year, you'll have Kiva planks and Connect show up at your, they're like, oh, they must have found my QR code from my Amazon.
Yeah, just put it on make a little bookmark.
Yeah.
Make a little bookmark.
So
and
they do that.
Oh, that's a great idea.
But corporate gifts, so we have several, well, I'm sure there's McDonald's everywhere. And I thought a lot of our McDonald's are owned by the same man in Baton Rouge. And I said, let me email him. Mail him a letter and see if he'd be willing to donate. So I emailed on school letterhead. It was just 2 or 3 sentences. Hey, I have a battle of the books. I want to feed these kids that earn this honor to be in this battle some breakfast. Is there any way you could, donate some hash browns? And I got a call within a week, I think. They're like, we'll pay for the full breakfast. They're like, how many kids? I said 76. And they said, which location are you nearest? And I told them, and they said, what time do you want to pick it up? And I showed up and I had boxes and boxes of food for my kids.
And I'm sure that they were absolutely thrilled. And, that really does generate a lot of excitement for your program. So I think that's great, because especially, it's very location specific. So listeners would have to look around. And I think it's important that you do go for some of the deeper pockets, because all too often our local community, our businesses get hit for everything.
Yes, they do. And our local Subway gets hit for everything. And it's just a man in our community running it. But I didn't feel bad asking the man that owns the 22 McDonald's.
Right. I know that we have some family-owned businesses that are close to our schools, and they are always lovely and wonderful and generous with our silent auctions and our fundraisers. But at some point, you get that donor fatigue. So I think I like the idea of you going to some of the larger national corporations for some of these donations, because, again, the optics are fantastic, and you really do give your local businesses maybe a little bit of a break.
Yes. And if you don't want to make a phone call, if you're too embarrassed to make a phone call, you can print out 20 letters on letterhead and send it to 20 different, you've got all these chains, restaurants and Walmarts and Kmarts and whatever's, and you never know until you ask. We asked Zaxby's. I don't know if you have Zaxby's, but we asked Zaxby's, and hey, we're having an event for some special needs students. They paid 200. They paid, brought 200 box lunches for our program. You never know until you ask, and some will give money and some will give their product, and you just never know until you ask. I'm going through this. Friends, I can't say enough about this. It's the most comprehensive list I have ever seen about funding for, and in this case, library specific. And that's really been the goal of this podcast all along, is to support and raise up school librarians and those of us who work in them. Because I think when you look at so much is tailored and customized towards educators in general, let's recognize that the librarians specifically and funding our programs is something that we have. The best selling point we have is that we are supporting every student in our building, and classrooms can't say that. We have that winning argument that when you support the school library, it benefits every single student who attends that class, that building. So I really think that it's a very compelling argument. We just have to be willing to go out there and make it. Let's go through. You mentioned a couple others, sort of just some fundraisers that we do ourselves in this next section about things like Friday Fun Days and readathons. What kinds of things, just quickly, can you tell me about these programs? So Readathon is a website. They're a company, and I use them. I get around $4,000 every year from doing a readathon. Oh yeah, free money. Like it's the easiest fundraiser I've ever done in my life. It's kind of like I equate it with the Walmart grant. When you're looking to fundraise, you do a readathon, and what you do is the kids sign up. You give them a code, and the kids go on and they make their website, and their parents share it on social media. And the more money they raise, and they log in their reading hours, and the more money they raise, they can pick from the prize store. And the company sends you the all the prizes, and you just hand it out to the kids. They send you the letters with the codes and all of this, and then they send you a check. And I don't do anything but advertise on social media. One thing I do to get a lot of money to pump up interest is that I try to do it around the same time as we're having an author visit. So I'll say the top 20 fundraisers get VIP seating, and a free book to get autographed. Like we had Tommy Greenwald, author of the new book Game Changer and the Charlie Joe Jackson books, and so the big selling point to them was the top 20 fundraisers get to sit front row, and when everybody else leaves, you get to talk to him by yourself, and you get a book, and he gets to autograph it. And then I said, and the top fundraiser gets to be librarian for the day. And some years I let them pick if they want to be principal for the day or librarian for the day, and this kid chose librarian for the day. So, so that's a way. That $4,000. That's, I mean, I just put it on social media.
Is that through pledges, so that families would then pledge their children for how many minutes they read? Am I right?
They don't even have to pledge per minute. They just make a blanket donation.
Okay. Let me ask you, because you posted a very cool little tidbit. You learned about getting local or getting some authors to come to your school. And I know that's not part of this episode, but I mean, author visits can be very expensive. And you found a great tip for bringing authors to your school for considerably less money.
Oh, yes. We have, so the Louisiana Book Festival is coming up. It's in Baton Rouge, which is about 20 miles from me. And it's coming up November 2nd. And so every year I kind of wonder who's going to be there. So I go through the list of authors. Well, this year I actually emailed 3 of them thinking, well, out of the 3 I emailed, maybe 1 will agree to come by my school. Well, all 3 agreed to come to my school because they're already coming into town. And so I said, well, how much will you charge? Oh, well, nothing. We're already flying in from, Kentucky or New York or wherever. They're like, we're already flying in. We'll just swing by your school and talk to your kids for an hour. I'm like, are you serious? It's completely free. So I have 3 really, really excellent authors coming in. And they're, one of them is, I am paying a small fee for one, only because she has to come in a day earlier. And her publishing company is not paying for her travel. So we're paying for her extra hotel night and her Uber out to our school. But I mean, we're talking crumbs compared to if we had paid her to fly specifically from, I believe she's coming from Kentucky, specifically from there, it would be a, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 visit that I'm paying $400 or $500 for, and then the other 2 are completely free. So
that's
I just
remarkable.
got $10,000 worth of author visits for $400, $500.
Oh my gosh. Well, and I'll be honest, many of us rely on our public libraries to bring in these big name authors. And when I asked the librarian at the public library, I said, can I just ask? Because the auditorium was filled with my students because it was an after school activity. So all the kids from lots of different schools could come. And I said, do you mind me asking? She goes, oh, it was $6,500. And my jaw just dropped. She spoke for an hour. And I understand. I mean, she flew across the country to speak to us, and thankfully our friends at the library picked up the bill, but there's no way a school district could have paid for something like that.
It's very hard to fund that. So, I mean, if they're coming in the area anyway, it doesn't hurt to ask if they can swing by your school.
Oh, that's amazing.
We're fortunate to have a local indie bookstore that's about 5 minutes from my school. And John and Michelle Cavalier, they own Cavalier House Books, and they get a lot of authors that come through their store for book signings. And they'll email me and say, hey, do you want to see if they want to stop by your school? So I've created this partnership with them so, we've had several authors that have come John or Michelle will call me or email me, hey, Raymond Arroyo is coming in town and he's willing to stop by your school for 2 hours. Yay or nay? Tell me, I'll make it happen.
And how wonderful that your community still has a bookstore, because in many cases, the large big box bookstores that were in many of our neighborhoods have closed business. Barnes and Noble, Borders, both of those used to be within minutes of my house. They're both gone now. And, supporting our local booksellers, it seems to me like this is a win-win, like a rising tide lifts all boats. If you are there creating these lifelong readers, then they're going to be benefiting because your community members have children who love to read, and gifts will be books from the bookstore, and that's wonderful.
And I actually work with them, like these 3 authors that are coming up soon. I actually called up John and Michelle at the bookstore and said, hey, these authors are coming. I want to do some book sales if the kids want autographed books. So we work with them. If you build that partnership, if you have one, a local bookstore, build it. They do our spring book fair also. And
that's amazing.
We put the money right back into the community, so win-win.
Of course. I do want to wrap things up. I mean, you have touched upon so much. And like I said, listeners, Amanda has this amazing resource. I know you mentioned here that there will be a Wakelet that you will be continuing to add to, which is very exciting. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
I started out, I had a pearl tree, which is, so I think I have 43, 44 different links for grants. Some of them might be duplicated, but I'm making the switch over to Wakelet right now. So I put the links to my pearl trees and my Wakelet. And so hopefully within the next year, I really work on that and build up those different sources. Right now, I've been looking at classroom outdoor gardens. So a lot of the links in my Wakelet are for gardening grants, but bear with me in the next year. I'm going to be building that up and including all sorts of other grants, but there's all sorts of links. And you can also, I want to say, the DEMCO, the library supply store, they have a link on there. You can research library grants. There's all sorts of information out there. There's thousands of links that I've never even gotten to look at because there's just so many out there.
Well, you've given us more than enough to work with. I guarantee you. I can't thank you enough for following up with this episode. Friends, if you haven't heard Amanda's first episode on social media, I strongly encourage you to go visit because her resources are fantastic. And she is presenting at AASL. And for those of us who are not fortunate enough to be attending AASL, this is the next best thing because Amanda is literally holding her hands and helping us fund our library. And clearly it takes some effort, but not a great deal. And I've enjoyed following you on social media. Would you please tell the listeners where all they can follow you on social media to get these resources firsthand?
Okay, so I do have a library website, and it's lomlibrary.org. I post a lot of information there. I am going to be posting a lot about advocacy on my school's website also. My social media on Facebook, it's LOM Library. It's LOM for Live Oak Middle, LOM Library. On Twitter, it's at LO Middle Library. And on Instagram, it's at LOM_library. And I also have a personal, I say personal, but I post librarian things on my personal Twitter. It's at abmac33. And I wanted to mention, if you see me at ASL, please stop by and say hello because I really love meeting new librarians. And I'm so glad I got to meet Amy at ISTE this past summer.
Well, I'll tell you what, I had no idea at the time just how much fun we could have following up with this. And to your point, we met at one of the many sort of hangouts for school librarians. And, I read something on Twitter and somebody said, librarians are such introverts. And I'm like, that's garbage. Librarians, when you find other librarians, we are so willing to talk and share and connect. And the fact that you live, in Louisiana and I'm in Michigan doesn't matter because we can have these conversations and hopefully many people will benefit from your expertise. And I can't thank you enough for being as generous as you have been. But friends, when you get to meet my friend Amanda Jones at AASL, just give her a big hug for me because she is lovely. And I really can't thank you enough for sharing your expertise with us today.
Thank you for having me. I love talking shop.
Friends, I'm going to sound like a broken record because I keep on thanking Amanda Jones, but you have to realize just how much this podcast depends on wonderful people sharing their time and their talents with listeners. And I know because I'm the one who gets the listener emails, and it really does mean a lot to me when I hear from librarians from all over the country and quite a few around the world who have been very gracious in letting me know that the episodes we have offered this season have really been helpful in supporting librarians, regardless of where you are in your careers. I also rely a great deal on these listener emails and feedback because it does give us a really good idea of what kinds of episodes will be useful to you. So if you happen to be in AASL in Lexington, Kentucky in a couple days, please be sure to go see Amanda Jones and her session. I would love more than anything to be there, and unfortunately I can't attend this year. I would like to thank all of you who have listened today, and I encourage you to get back to me either through Facebook or Twitter or our email address, schoollibrariansunited@gmail.com. If you include your mailing address, whether it's to your home or to your school, I'll be happy to send you a podcast sticker. The topic of our next episode will be Mighty Little Librarian, Tiffany Whitehead. I hope you will tune in.